Carl Jung. Why do you feel empty and lose motivation after awakening? You once thought that upon awakening, life would blaze with light and everything would become clear. Each morning you would wake with a heart on fire, carrying a sacred mission. Yet one day you look around and see nothing. No goals, no inspiration, no desire to achieve or to rise higher, only a cold silence remains. It is not that you are suffering, but that you are empty. You do not understand why. Having seen the truth and cast off all masks, you feel so drained. Why do you lose all motivation after finally awakening? Carl Jung called this the most sacred moment, yet the most misunderstood. He said, "Light does not come from imagining brilliance. It comes from daring to step into darkness." What you are experiencing is not failure, but the first stage of a new kind of life that has never had a name. There is a moment that nearly everyone on the spiritual path of awakening will face. It is when everything inside seems to dissolve without leaving a trace. It is not a fierce pain, nor a shock from the outside, but a silence so cold it comes from the depths of the mind. Everything that once excited you suddenly becomes tasteless. Your dreams, your goals, your plans, even things you once thought sacred collapse before you. Yet there is no one crying, no drama, no one to hug you and tell you that you have lost something great. Instead, there is only you and an inexplicable emptiness. That moment frightens many people. They assume they are regressing, growing weak, losing all that they had awakened. But if you understand Jung at a deeper level, this is not a step backward. It is the first true step. The moment you pass through the final mask of ego and touch the primal ground of your inner being. No more dazzling masks, no more applause, no more yearning for recognition, no more dreams wrapped in the fear of being left behind. Everything falls into an almost absolute silence. And for many, this is when they begin to feel that they have lost their drive to live. But is it truly that you have lost motivation? Or have you simply crossed the boundary into a way of living that has not yet been named? Jung said, "There is no awakening that does not pass through a death. This death is not of the body, but rather the dissolution of the self-image to which you have clung so long that you called it me." When the ego cracks, the structures that drove your behavior collapse as well. If previously you woke each morning to achieve results, to be a good person, to be loved, now none of these needs pull you forward. They are no longer strong enough to make you rise from bed, and that is why you think you have become useless. The truth is not that you have become useless, but that you have been brought to a place where all the old reasons no longer work. You have been pushed into a void where only your own presence can set you in motion. No fear, no reward, no pressure, and like a newborn child, you do not yet know what to use to take the next step. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something entirely primitive. Carl Jung called this moment the true threshold of the process of individuation. It is the stage when the individual separates from the impositions of society, from belief systems nurtured by the expectations of parents, teachers, religion, or culture, and begins a unique journey named after himself. But the danger is that modern society does not teach us to recognize this stage. Instead, it labels you as lazy, depressed, directionless, in a midlife crisis, or even mentally unstable. If you believe these labels, you will try to cure what does not need curing. You will try to return to your old motivations, to rekindle a flame that has already gone out, to chase after what once made you passionate, but now exists only as a shadow. And in that forced effort, you become even more exhausted because your soul no longer wants to perform. Awakening is not a moment of bursting light. It does not resemble a movie scene where the hero finally understands life's meaning and cries tears of joy. It is more like a long, heavy rain washing away all the artificial structures built over many years, leaving behind a barren field in which you do not know what to plant. It makes you feel lost because you stand in a new field with a soul that does not know how to farm. And that is why you lose motivation. It is not because you lack willpower, but because you cannot continue sowing with the old seeds. There is a harsh truth that few dare to face. Most of the things that once made you strive and work hard were merely the result of fear of being abandoned, scorned, or of failing. When you begin to recognize this, when the light of truth illuminates those hidden motives, you no longer want to use them, yet you have not found a new energy to replace them. That silence between two territories pulls you into a strange void, neither old nor yet new. Carl Jung calls this the liminal stage, the transition when the old ego has died but the new self has not yet fully emerged. It is at once a dead end and an open door. Depending on how you accept it, it can become an abyss or a place of rebirth. Therefore, the most important thing now is not to force yourself to do something, but to learn to sit in dissolution, to learn to breathe with uncertainty, to accept that sometimes silence is not failure, but a necessary pause in which something deeper begins to take shape. Jung never urged people to hurry their healing. He gently pointed out that beneath the disorder, a new order is waiting to be born. So if you feel that you have lost all motivation, do not rush to conclude that you have gone off track. Perhaps you are simply stepping through an invisible gate that no one has guided you through, and maybe you are about to begin a journey in which motivation no longer comes from push or pull, but from your entire presence. This is not the moment to turn back, nor the moment to leap forward. This is the moment to dissolve, and in that dissolution, the first seed of a more authentic person is being sown no longer for anyone else, no longer to be loved, to be recognized, or to prove anything, but simply to live for yourself, to live in truth. And that way of living, although it has no name yet, is the very way every awakened soul ultimately seeks. There is a paradox common after the inner awakening process, the appearance of a sense of peace that is accompanied by an inexplicable emptiness. You no longer struggle with conflicts as before, nor are you caught in cycles of anger, envy, craving, or fear of abandonment. From the outside, you might appear to live the life you once dreamed of, quiet, gentle, no longer controlled by impulsive emotions or chaos. Yet inside you, there is no feeling of joy or excitement, only a silent emptiness that cannot be accurately named. Then you begin to doubt yourself. You wonder, is this paralysis wrapped in a shell of peace? Is this an elaborate form of escape? Are you truly losing your emotions? You used to cry when you heard a piece of music, tremble with emotion when you saw someone helping another in a rainy night, feel goosebumps when reading a deeply touching sentence. Now, when you read a profound book, you only think, yes, that is true. When you listen to a poignant song, you only think, it is beautiful. But you no longer react strongly to things that once moved you. And this confuses you because you believe that when you could touch the truth, when you could remove the mask, when you could let go of wounds, you would feel more alive. But instead, you feel as if you are walking in a gray land. Neither pain nor intoxication, neither desire nor attachment, an absolute emptiness not intense enough to make you scream. And you begin to ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Carl Jung calls this stage the liminal state. It is a transitional area between two realities. On one hand, you have left the old land where the ego reigned, where your main drives were created from fear, expectation, and the need for recognition. On the other hand, you have not yet fully entered the new reality where your true being speaks and guides you with inner clarity. You are in between, no longer belonging to the old, but not yet fully formed for the new. And it is in this intermediate space that you experience emptiness. That is not your fault, it is an essential part of the transformation process. That emptiness is not a void, but the dissolution of the illusions that once built your inner world. You were once manipulated by many beautiful dreams. The dream of someone who would make you feel complete, the dream of a job that would make you feel valuable, the dream that social recognition was a measure of happiness. Now you see clearly that all of those were merely layers of paint over the deep fears within. When you see that truth, everything once called meaning begins to disintegrate. The motivations that excited you before no longer work, but the new has not yet arrived, and you fall into a space where all emotions are flattened. No pain, no joy, only a drifting within. The truth has not yet taken shape. The truth is that you are not exhausted. You are becoming transparent. You are not numb. You are learning to separate genuine emotion from the habitual reactions of the past. You used to be moved when something external touched your inner lack. Now you no longer lack, but you also do not yet know how to touch fullness from within yourself. That is a new skill your soul is learning, and while it learns, it remains silent not because it is dead, but because it listens, observes, and adjusts its own rhythm. If you continue through that empty land without rushing to judge or to fill it, you will begin to realize that such silence is not meaningless. It is like land after a wildfire, stripped bare and desolate. But if you are patient enough to stay, you will see a small sprout appear one morning without warning. A green shoot that does not depend on expectation or fear, but simply emerges at the right time. And from that moment, you will understand that life does not come from external pushes. It comes from inner ripening. We live in an age that idolizes peaks of emotion. We are taught that to live means always to be passionate, always to crave, always to strive. We believe that a day without feeling strong is a wasted day. But Carl Jung points to a different path. He said that truth does not lie in explosions, but in quiet repetition, in those seemingly bland days in which the soul quietly transforms itself. It is precisely those periods that seem empty that form the foundation for a life no longer manipulated by external circumstances. Therefore, if you are in the liminal space where you no longer feel pain but no longer feel joy, where you no longer scream but no longer laugh, know that you are not alone. It is not a stage of being lost. It is the middle part of a bridge between the old and the new, and you only need one thing: do not rush. Let that emptiness teach you how to be present without purpose. Let that stillness teach you how to love life not because it promises anything, but simply because it is. And if you listen long enough, you will realize that true peace is not the absence of disturbance, but the ability to remain in any state, even ambiguity, even emptiness, without needing to escape. Carl Jung said, "Light does not come from imagining an image of light, but from recognizing darkness within oneself." Sometimes the clarity you are experiencing is that darkness not for you to fear, but to reveal that you no longer need anything more to be complete. It is precisely in having nothing left that you have the opportunity to touch everything. That is not loss, but return. Return to life the illusions that once obscured your vision. Return to you a pristine soul untainted by expectation or calculation. Return to life its right to flow without control. And when you can sit in the silent emptiness without fearing it, without seeking to replace it with any strong emotion, you truly enter the threshold of a new way of living, a way of living that does not need to prove itself, does not need to become someone else, but only needs to be present fully and quietly. From that point on, you will not need to ask why you have lost all motivation, for you will understand that you have lost nothing. You are simply being guided to a place where motivation is no longer necessary, where only truth remains, and life will continue on its own from there. You are not lazy. It is just that the old fuel has run out. A very common feeling after someone undergoes inner awakening is an almost motionless slowing down in many aspects of life. You may once have been a person who never stopped working, living with densely packed goals, a life speed so fast you could not catch your breath. You were excited to learn a new skill, take on another project, achieve another accomplishment, climb another rung of prestige. But then suddenly, after a spiritual event or a journey into the depths of yourself, you no longer want to do anything. Not because you have lost ability, but because you no longer see a reason to do things as before. Everything that once intoxicated you suddenly seems meaningless. Every goal that once thrilled you now feels like a trap. What torments you most is hearing those around you say you are lazy, giving up, lacking ambition. Worse yet, you begin to doubt yourself. Are you becoming weak, passive, losing the fire of life? But the truth is different. You are not lazy. You simply no longer want to live on fuel that has run dry. Jung pointed out that most of the motivations driving people in modern society actually stem from the ego. He defined the ego as a personality structure formed primarily to adapt to the external world. It is built on experiences, adult expectations, societal judgments, and unhealed wounds. That ego creates in you a series of motivations that seem positive, such as the desire for success, the need to contribute, the wish to do meaningful things. Yet if you look more deeply, many of those motivations are actually driven by fear and lack. Fear of being inferior, fear of being abandoned, fear of having no value. Those fears create the drive that pushes you to run, to prove yourself, to surpass others, not because you truly want to, but because you cannot bear feeling left behind. When you begin the process of awakening, you start to see the true nature of those motives. You realize that most of your life energy has been used in the wrong place. You see how many years you have spent merely fulfilling expectations that were not truly yours. You recognize that the achievements you once took pride in did not actually make you happier. You see that the tasks that once made you feel busy and useful now only wear you out and estrange you from yourself. And so, you stop not because you lack ability, but because you can no longer continue deceiving yourself. The death of the old drive is an indispensable stage in the individuation process that Jung described. It is like driving a car that has run thousands of miles on impure fuel. The car still moves and reaches its destination, but the engine inside has worn down, is gradually failing, and no longer matches the true needs of the driver. At some point, you are forced to stop the car not because you don't want to continue, but because if you keep going, you will destroy what remains. Stopping is not failure. Stopping is the only choice if you want to hear what the car truly needs, and, more importantly, to realize whether you truly want to reach the destination you once thought was your goal. The feeling of emptiness after those old drives die is inevitable, because you do not yet have a new drive to replace them. You do not yet know how to live without constantly running. You are not used to acting without needing recognition, and this makes you think you have lost all energy. But what you really lose is not life energy, but the illusions that once imprisoned you in your old roles. You acted to be called successful. Now you no longer see that label as meaningful. You used to work for a social position. Now you realize that position did not bring you closer to yourself. And so you pause. You are not lazy. You are simply no longer forced to live in the old way. What's worth mentioning is that society does not easily accept this pause, because we live in a world that idolizes performance. You are only seen as valuable if you are doing something, if you are moving forward, producing tangible results. No one teaches you how to sit still and observe. No one applauds when you refuse an opportunity to preserve inner peace. No one admires you for being honest with yourself to the point of letting go of accomplishments that no longer give life. And so, you can be easily pulled back, easily made to feel guilty, easily made to feel like a burden. But if you are clear-eyed enough to see through social norms, you will see that stopping now is not only the right decision, but also the beginning of genuine growth. Jung emphasized that spiritual growth cannot coexist with pretense. Once you see these misplaced motives, you cannot pretend not to see them. You can return to your old work. You can continue striving. But you will no longer feel that it resonates with who you are, and that lack of alignment will truly exhaust you. On the surface, you appear to be living, but inside you are rebelling. That crack is the main reason many people fall into crisis. They do not understand why they still have a job, income, and status, but feel as though they are slowly dying. The reason is that they have crossed an inner threshold, but still try to return to their old clothes. If you are in a phase where you do not want to do anything, know that you are not broken. You are awake, you are waiting, you are restructuring your life drive, and this takes time, trust, and kindness toward yourself. Do not force yourself to do anything just to prove you are okay. Learn to be motionless without panic. Allow yourself to do nothing without feeling guilty. For from that silence, a new source of drive will gradually emerge, one that does not come from fear or from the desire for recognition, but from absolute honesty with your inner sensations. When that new drive arises, you will realize that you no longer need to push yourself to live. Every small action will carry full presence. You will no longer work because you have to, but because you feel that you are living fully in each choice you make. And this will not be loud. It will not earn you immediate honor or praise, but it will bring you peace, not a fabricated peace, but deep inner calm. A way of living that does not need to rush, does not need to prove anything, but only needs honesty. From that honesty, you will never have to ask where your drive comes from again, because your full presence will be sufficient motivation in itself. A curious phenomenon occurs when you go deeply into the process of inner awakening. The things that once were the center of your life, the goals you fought for, guarded, even sacrificed your youth to achieve, suddenly feel alien. You look at the objectives that once served as your guiding stars, the relationships that once made your heart race, the beliefs you once protected at all costs, and realize you no longer feel connected. Not because you are ungrateful or callous, nor because you are becoming indifferent, but because something deeper within you has changed. A new layer of essence is emerging while the old layer is gradually replaced without warning. This confuses you because you cannot explain why a dream that once drove you to live or die no longer moves you. Why someone you once deeply loved, someone you vowed to spend your life with, suddenly feels like a stranger. Why an environment that once excited you now feels suffocating? Why the very self you cultivated through years of aspirations and identity no longer feels like you? You begin to wonder, am I changing too quickly? Am I betraying my past? Or am I losing myself? Jung described this phase as a phantom death of the ego, no funeral, no tears, no grand ceremony, yet a genuine dissolution within your psyche. The old ego, that part of your personality formed to adapt to the environment, to be accepted, to fulfill social roles, gradually can no longer carry your soul. It is like a garment that once fit you perfectly, once helped you withstand life's coldness, but now has become too tight and suffocates you if you keep wearing it. Yet because you have clung to that garment for so long, you confuse it with yourself. When it no longer fits, instead of thinking to change clothes, you fear you are becoming disoriented. In reality, this is one of the deepest stages of inner maturation, because it requires you to have the courage to part ways with what once formed your old identity. What once mattered now seems unfamiliar, not because it never had value, but because it once served as milestones that helped you build yourself. Yet like a bridge, it has meaning only while you still need to cross the river. Once you have reached the other side, you cannot live on that bridge forever, nor do you need to carry it with you. To look back without feeling emotion or attachment is a sign that you have transcended an old energy you no longer need to carry with you. But what pains you is that this change did not come from a clear decision. It was not a conscious choice. It happened naturally, quietly, almost without your control. And that is what makes you feel guilty. You do not understand why you have become a stranger to loved ones, why a job that once made you proud has become a burden, why social gatherings that once excited you now exhaust you. Worse, you cannot explain it to others, nor even to yourself. You only know that everything is slipping through your hands without noise, without drama, but very real. Carl Jung called this the necessary dissolution of the ego to make way for individuation. It is the process by which you gradually remove the shells that once helped you survive, but no longer help you grow. What once mattered was not wrong, they were right for a certain phase of your journey, but when you step into a new phase, they no longer serve as your guide. And if you cling to them, you will feel lost even within your own life. You will live among loved ones, but cannot have deep conversations. You will do work that once made you proud, but no longer feels meaningful. You will carry responsibilities that once felt like duty, but now feel like mere performance. In that stage, you must learn to distinguish between the ego and the self. The ego is the collection of roles, identities, and beliefs you don to exist in a world of demands and conditions. The self is the deepest part of you, unaffected by upbringing, culture, or expectations. When the self begins to speak, the ego becomes uneasy. To protect its existence, it will make you feel guilty for letting go of what once mattered. It will make you doubt yourself, using every memory, every promise, every habit to pull you back. And if you are not aware enough, you will return only to suffocate again, because once the self has spoken, nothing can make you pretend any longer. This is when you need courage, not the kind that destroys everything, but the courage to accept that you are transforming. That transformation will not resemble anyone else's, will not be applauded by society, and will not be easily named. You will feel alone. You will feel as though you are betraying what you once loved. But that is the cost of truth. There is no awakening without sacrifice, no growth that does not demand you release what once helped you survive. Remember that what once mattered had its reasons, and what now feels alien also has its reasons. Every layer of meaning has its expiration date, and you do not owe the past a perpetual life in its old form. The only thing you owe yourself is honesty. If something no longer makes your heart beat, dare to admit it. If a relationship no longer helps you grow, have the courage to face it. If a goal has completed its role, let it go with gratitude, not because you are cold, but because you are growing deeper. Carl Jung did not endorse meaningless rebellion. He only invited you to look inward and recognize what is still true and what is outdated. And when you live honestly by that awareness, you will see that disconnection is not a sign of crisis, but an invitation from your inner self to reconnect with your deeper part, one that does not live on memories, does not operate from obligation, is not bound by what once mattered, a part that lives only in truth and freedom. From there, you will begin to see light again, not the light of grand goals, but the light from within, a light that needs no recognition, needs no interpretation, only needs to be lived. You will see that when you let go of what once mattered but no longer does, you lose nothing. You are only making space for what is truly meant for you to arrive. And that is rebirth, not loud, not dramatic, but so profound that you will never need to return to the old way of living. For you have seen the truth, and once you have seen, nothing can make you pretend you never have. When you cannot return, but also do not yet know where to go, there is a stage in the journey of awakening that most people will experience sooner or later. It is the moment when you no longer belong to the old place, but have not yet seen the new path. It is not noisy or dramatic as when you first shattered, but it is deeper and more persistent than any crisis you have faced. You feel as if you are between two worlds, and neither fully accepts you. The old world is one you have left behind, in silence, with habits, views, drives, and relationships once familiar. The new world remains blurry, nameless, shapeless. You cannot return to the old self, but you have not yet formed the new self. And that silence makes you feel as if you stand in a vast void. No wind, no direction, no companion, and sometimes no sense of self. Carl Jung described this stage as the black stage of spiritual transformation, also called nigredo in alchemical terms. It is the phase when all inner structures begin to melt away. No more old belief systems, no more clear identities, no more familiar definitions of the ego. Everything feels thrown into a furnace, and you stand by, watching yourself dissolve layer by layer. This is not mere depression, nor is it superficial disorientation. This is a thorough dismantling, where the ego has no ground to stand on, and the soul gropes to find a new form that has not yet taken shape. You still go to work, still interact, still fulfill minimal responsibilities, but inside you is a nameless haze. What makes this stage hard to identify and endure is that it has no clear signs like ordinary crises. You do not scream or panic. You do not feel obvious despair. You only see everything fading. Each day passes like a repeated copy. You are no longer stuck in suffering, but you cannot find joy either. You feel like a stranger in your own life, watching things unfold but not truly present. All advice sounds hollow. Every attempt to rekindle motivation is like trying to light a fire on ice. You no longer trust the things that once anchored you, yet you have nothing new to rely on. If this stage persists, you may begin to doubt yourself deeply. You will ask, where did I go wrong? Am I backsliding? Am I lost? Why can't I feel connected to anything anymore? And worse, you start to think you are broken, that you are falling behind while others move forward. But all those questions are just the ego's reaction to dissolution, for the ego always needs goals, needs answers, needs a sense of control. When there are no familiar footholds, it panics in silence. But the soul is doing something else. It is not panicking, it does not need to hurry, it is in its own process. A process that, if you trust it enough, you will realize is not regression, but the deepest stage of reshaping. Carl Jung did not view nigredo as a negative dark point. On the contrary, he saw it as an indispensable part of the individuation journey. Just as a seed must completely rot before it can break open and sprout, a person must go through a psychological decomposition phase where nothing is clear in order to give rise to a new, deeper form of life. This is a stage that no one can help you move through faster. There are no shortcuts, no right or wrong answers, no method that can push you out before the appropriate time. The only thing you can do is to be present. Do not run away. Do not judge yourself. Do not try to fill the ambiguity with meaningless action. In fact, this ambiguity is not an enemy. It is a guide that leads you to places you have never dared to step into. It pulls you out of worn paths, rigid definitions, and obsolete ways of living. It forces you to sit down and ask yourself, what do I truly want? Who am I when I have no roles? Why do I exist if no one recognizes me? If you answer those questions hastily, they will only bring you back to your old masks. But if you have the courage to refrain from answering immediately, to remain silent and observe, you will find that the answer does not come in words, but as a sensation and unspoken, but certain feeling that you are being led in the right direction, even though you cannot yet see the path. During this time, you may notice yourself withdrawing. You speak less, you no longer participate in debates, you lose interest in subjects that once made you enthusiastic, you no longer want to attend superficial social gatherings. You pull away from shallow appointments and choose to be alone more often. All of this is not because you have grown cold. It is because you need space for your soul to be reborn in silence, a silence no one else can understand unless they have walked through a dark place whose value only you know. If someone ever told you that awakening is a radiant journey, always full of light and inspiration, then they have not gone far enough. True light does not come immediately after darkness, but arrives only after you learn to stay within the darkness without demanding that it disappear. And that is the real quantum leap in spiritual maturation, not moving from ignorance to omniscience, but from always needing to know to understanding that not knowing is also part of the truth. Jung once said that nothing can substitute for personal experience of facing the darkness. No books, no lectures, no advice can help you pass through the Negrito stage if you do not feel it for yourself. Precisely because it cannot be replaced, it is precious not because it is pleasant, but because it is real. It shows you your own weakness, the limits of your ego, the fragility of everything you once thought permanent. And when you accept all of that without collapsing, you will realize that you do not need to return nor rush anywhere. You only need to remain there within yourself like someone learning to live again from the beginning. Then, one morning without warning, you will feel something small move within you like a seed sprouting, like a silent idea, like a gentle impulse to begin again from the place where there is nothing. At that moment you will understand that it is precisely that darkness which truly nourishes life, not the external light, but the light you discover after daring to step into yourself without expecting any return. That is the true beginning of a way of life no longer afraid of losing its way, because you have understood that sometimes not knowing where to go is the starting point of everything. What is called new motivation does not come from wanting more, but from the truth within. After passing through a state of disorientation, dissolution, and emptiness, many people start searching for something new to replace their old goals and motivations. But the paradox is, although you have tried very hard to rebuild a life with direction, the old types of motivation no longer fit you. Whenever you attempt to rekindle your previous enthusiasm, you realize that it no longer works. Not because you lack determination, but because deep inside you know that you cannot return to a lifestyle based on ambition, comparison, or others' expectations. Then you slowly come to realize an important truth. Real motivation does not come from what you want to achieve, but from something very quiet and authentic forming deep within you. This stage marks a major shift in the individuation process that Jung described as the gradual connection between the ego and the self. The ego used to be the command center of your behavior, but after undergoing the decomposition phase, it no longer issues orders. Instead, the self, the most authentic, deepest core of being, begins to speak. But the voice of the self is not loud. It does not push you to succeed, does not tell you to prove anything, nor does it drag you into a race with the world. It merely offers subtle guidance through a feeling that is hard to express in words, a sense of rightness, that is, what is right for you, right for the present moment, right without needing justification. During this phase, you will begin to feel gentle impulses to do something not for fame or profit, not for a specific goal, but simply because you sense it should be done. You might suddenly want to rewrite a piece of your journal after years of not touching a pen. You might want to clean your room, even though no one is coming to visit. You might begin to care for a small potted plant, or focus on cooking a simple yet wholehearted meal. These actions carry no grand symbolism, but they bring a sense of peace and vitality. And you will realize that you act not for the result, but because, in those moments, you are living authentically. This is a new kind of motivation, a form of life energy that does not arise from tension or compulsion, but from harmony between inner and outer worlds. You no longer act to run away from fear, but to express something true from within you. Jung said that a person truly matures when they live according to an inner principle, that is, they act upon something that resonates from the self, not upon commands from society or the ego. When you live by this principle, you will feel relieved because you no longer have to fight to be recognized, no longer have to prove your worth. Every action you take becomes a form of connection with yourself and naturally spreads outward into the world. However, because you have been so accustomed to living with clear goals and concrete reasons, entering this phase may make you feel as though you are becoming vague, lacking direction. Society does not teach us to trust our feelings. It teaches us to trust logical plans, performance, and outcomes. Thus, you are easily questioned when you do something simply because it feels right. Others may ask why you refused a good opportunity, why you do work that offers no apparent benefit, why you are slowing down as youth slips by. And if you are not yet solid in yourself, you will begin to doubt. But if you listen to your inner sense, you will realize you are not doing anything wrong. You are simply living in accordance with your present stage. Real motivation after awakening is not a fierce flame, but a quiet wave from deep within urging you to align with life in the most authentic way. No grand objectives required, no spectacular achievements needed, only that each action stems from a place of rightness within you. And when you live like that for long enough, you will see your life energy restored. You will no longer be weary of chasing things that are not truly yours, no longer be exhausted trying to become a perfect version of yourself, no longer fear being left behind. Only a steadfast and gentle presence will remain. Carl Jung once compared the process of individuation to returning to oneself, but as a version recreated after passing through darkness. When you act from the self, everything no longer feels obligatory. Instead, it becomes a natural initiative. You are no longer afraid of lacking a long-term plan, because you have learned to trust the inner guidance. You no longer feel pressured to achieve something grand, because you realize that simply living authentically in every small action is already a form of accomplishment. You will experience a kind of happiness that does not come from victory, but from full presence. This stage is also when you begin to develop a deep relationship with intuition. Intuition is not a random hunch. It is the language of the self. When you remain silent long enough and live honestly, you will sense subtle signals from within. That is when you know what you should do without needing anyone's advice, when you decline something without regret, when you start a task without needing to justify it. You will find yourself entering life not by following a plan, but by following a feeling, not an impulsive emotion, but a knowing deep in your heart, even without concrete evidence. You may not be understood by others right away, because the world still celebrates those who act quickly, speak loudly, and attain swift results. But you no longer need to be understood, because you have learned that what matters is not making others accept your path, but being honest enough not to betray your inner knowing. And as you live in that way, you will meet others who live as you do, unpretentious, quiet yet full of inner strength. They will not ask you what you have accomplished. They will simply listen to see whether you are living authentically. Eventually, you will realize that what is called motivation is no longer a source of energy you must seek, but a natural consequence of living in alignment with yourself. And in that alignment, you will see that you need not push yourself any longer. You do not have to strain or strive to become something great. You only need to be yourself and act from that place of stillness. From that stillness, everything you do carries a genuine vitality, not because it is grand, but because it is yours. Not because it makes you stand out, but because it brings you peace. In a world racing too fast, it is precisely that peace that becomes the most precious gift you can give yourself and life itself. You are not wrong. You are becoming truly yourself after passing through the layers of emptiness, disorientation, slowing down, listening, and finally starting to act from inner truth. You enter a phase that seems most paradoxical, in which you feel you are living more authentically than ever, yet you drift farther away from the rhythm of the surrounding world. You no longer feel interested in superficial conversations. You no longer want to cultivate relationships you have to force yourself to maintain. You no longer crave fitting in just to be accepted. You gradually become quiet, introspective, somewhat inscrutable in others' eyes. They may say you have changed. They may think you are negative or even depressed. But you know very well that you are neither sad nor dissatisfied nor in crisis as before. You are simply stepping back to live more truthfully. You are refusing to participate in a game whose fabricated rules you have seen clearly. Carl Jung said that when a person begins to live the process of individuation, they feel as though they are moving against the entire current of society. This does not mean you become an oppositional or entirely isolated figure, but it means you no longer feel compelled to chase the outward rhythms manufactured by fear, comparison, and collectively programmed habits. You no longer want to force yourself to connect if your inner self does not truly wish to. You no longer need to develop yourself according to general standards if those standards no longer resonate with you. You may even start declining invitations that once were your dreams, because you see clearly that they no longer nurture the deep self within you. Yet at this very moment, you can fall into another deep doubt. When you look around and see everyone else still rushing, still excited by races, still enjoying relationships, you begin to ask yourself, am I on the wrong path? Have I become too extreme? Am I closing myself off rather than opening up? Then you find yourself at a crossroad. Either pretend as before to continue fitting in with the world, or continue living authentically and accept no longer belonging to the old collective. Neither choice is easy. One side feels like betraying yourself. The other feels like being lost in a world you once knew. This is one of the greatest challenges of the individuation process that Jung emphasized, because humans are inherently social beings. We are programmed to bond, to fit in, to feel safe when we are like the majority. Therefore, choosing to live authentically, which rarely aligns with the majority, requires immense courage. It demands that you trust your inner sense, even if no one understands, even if no one supports you, even if there is no clear evidence that you are on the right path. But once you become awake enough to distinguish between ego and self, you know that pretending even for one more day is too much, because the price of pretending is losing connection with your true life, gradually hollowing out and withering without knowing why. Modern society tends to view silence as abnormal. People believe you must always be cheerful, always socialize, always develop, always be present in the games. And when you no longer feel enthusiastic about those things, you are easily labeled as negative, distant, or depressed. Yet Jung pointed out that the silence following awakening is not a sign of pathology, but a form of deep inner maturation. It is when you no longer want to speak if you have nothing genuine to share, when you no longer need to participate in a gathering just to be seen, when you choose to live inwardly, even choosing solitude, because you know you are in a very sacred process. The process of becoming your true self. You no longer want to do things you once did simply because others expect them. You no longer seek success by making others admire you. You no longer measure your worth by the number of relationships or the noise on social media. Instead, you begin to find joy in simplicity, a morning without an alarm clock, an afternoon reading a book you truly love, an evening quietly sitting with yourself without needing entertainment or distraction to escape emptiness. No longer fleeing from yourself, no longer filling silence with noise. Those are the signs that you are on the right path, even if few understand that path. From the outside, others will not see you progressing by conventional standards. But inside, you clearly feel that you are going deeper into the core of life. You find yourself more sensitive to authenticity and falseness. You become more vulnerable to unintended words, but also more moved by simple, beautiful moments. You feel your heart opening wider not because you need someone to step in, but because you have stopped closing yourself off. You learn to forgive not because the other person deserves it, but because you no longer wish to hold on to anything that weighs you down. And above all, you learn to live honestly, not according to any formula, not for any ideal, only because you know that if you do not live truthfully, you cannot continue living. Carl Jung referred to this process as the rebirth of the true ego, the part of you that is unconditioned by culture, family, or circumstance. When you live from that place, you no longer feel the need to rush. You no longer feel the need to be better than anyone else. You no longer feel compelled to explain everything. You live according to your own pace and realize that this pace alone is enough to bring you peace. No one applauds, no one praises, but you know you have entered a way of living in which nothing is merely a performance. Every word, every action, every choice arises from a genuine place within you, and that is freedom, a kind of freedom that no one can take away and no one can give you except yourself. Therefore, if you find yourself increasingly out of step with others, drifting away from old rhythms, speaking less, making fewer friends, please do not be frightened. You are not doing anything wrong. You are simply becoming yourself, and that journey is neither loud nor dazzled by fireworks. It is the most profound and beautiful journey that anyone who has awakened must travel. You do not need to force yourself to return nor to strive to move forward. You only need to allow yourself to be who you are, little by little, day by day. And when the truth within you becomes strong enough, the world outside will either adjust to you or fall away naturally. For finally, you will understand that you are not here to become someone else. You are here to be yourself, whole, honest, and free. No matter how many crossroads lie ahead, how much loneliness you endure, how many challenges arise, as long as you remain connected to yourself, everything else will fall into its rightful place. There is no need to hurry, No need to prove anything, just continue to be authentic. And that is the quiet yet most enduring transformation your soul has always longed for. The soul does not disappear, it quietly renews itself. There are phases in life when everything seems frozen. There is no obvious pain, but no real joy either. No agonizing questions, but also no answers. No goal to pursue, but no desire to return to the past. You live, you breathe, you wake up each day, you do the bare minimum, but deep within you there is a sustained silence, smoldering like an invisible void. You begin to ask yourself whether you are truly alive, or if you have become a drifting shadow in the midst of daily life. Is your soul dead? This question haunts many after they have undergone an awakening. Once you have shed your masks, once you are no longer captivated by external goals, once you have summoned the courage to look deeply into your own darkness, you expect to feel relief and aliveness. Instead, you fall into an interior void that no one forewarned you about, a place where all that was old is slowly decaying, while what is new has not yet taken shape. That is the stage when those on the outside will say you are lost, collapsing, or bored with life. But in truth, you are in the process of the deepest reconstruction. This is the moment when your soul does not vanish but instead withdraws, silent, and quietly renews itself from within. Jung likened inner transformation to a caterpillar inside its cocoon before becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar must go through a stage of self-dissolution within its chrysalis. All its old structures break down, it no longer retains its original form, and none of the traits that once defined it as a caterpillar remain. It does not know for certain that it will become a butterfly. It has no map to follow. It only has a vague, instinctual guidance from within. When that process is complete, a new being emerges, completely different in form, living entirely differently, possessing abilities that its former self could never have imagined. If you feel as though your soul is dead, understand that you are only in that cocoon phase. There is nothing wrong happening. Rather, it is the natural process of your psyche healing and being reborn. The problem is that we live in a society that always prioritizes action, results, and outward expression. We are taught that we must always be present, always know what we are doing, always have a clear life purpose. When you withdraw, when you stop, when you no longer want to participate in endless races, society views you as if you are a failure. Loved ones may worry, friends may distance themselves, and you may begin to doubt yourself. For no one teaches you that inner silence is an essential part of development. No one tells you that sometimes doing nothing is the most correct choice you can make to truly hear yourself. During that time, you may feel invisible. No one asks about you. No one notices you. No one needs your presence. You are no longer at the center of any relationship. You have no desire to share. You have nothing to recount. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. Instead of feeling relief, you might feel as if you are gradually fading. That can be very painful, because deep within us exists a fear of being forgotten, abandoned, deemed worthless. But if you are patient enough to sit with that feeling without denying it, without covering it up through activity or by seeking advice from others, you will realize something very important. You have not lost your value. You are merely withdrawing the worth you once measured by others' eyes, by external recognition, by feedback from the outside world. Your soul has not disappeared. It is simply no longer broadcasting the signals you were used to, the sense of connection you felt when you were loved, acknowledged, or doing something deemed useful. Now, none of those things make you feel alive anymore, not because something is wrong with you, but because you are being guided back to a deeper level, a realm where your existence does not depend on what you do, but on who you are. A realm where you no longer need to do anything in order to be loved. You only need to be fully present within your own quiet. That is where you begin to learn how to experience life, not through achievements or roles, but through simple presence. Carl Jung affirmed that true transformation of the soul does not occur in glorious moments, but within silent periods when the ego dissolves and the self slowly forms. There is no light shining upon you, no triumphant soundtrack, only a prolonged silence in which everything that once defined you becomes hollow and meaningless. You must learn to stand within yourself without any external frame of reference. When you can do that, when you can remain in not knowing, uncertainty, and lack of clarity without forcing yourself to escape, your soul is truly healed. Not through any therapy, but by your own unconditional, wholehearted presence. If you are in a phase in which all that was old is falling away yet nothing new has replaced it, do not be quick to label it as avoidance. It is the necessary dissolution to create space for what truly belongs to you. Everything that once made up your identity, status, achievements, relationships, vision is being peeled away so that you can return to your unnamed core. And from there, one day you will awaken and notice something stirring within. Very small, very faint, but enough to let you know you are still alive. No longer living as before, but also no longer needing to return. A new form of life, never before named, is taking shape. A way of living not driven by anything external, but guided by an inner current you cannot resist. When you step into that current, you will no longer need any reason to live. You simply live as an inevitability, the most natural expression of life. Then the fragments that seem to have fallen apart will gradually reconnect in a new shape. No need for you to design it. No need for you to calculate. They will fit together on their own once you are silent enough to observe. And when you look back, you will see that your soul has not vanished. It has merely been reborn in a way that is uniquely yours, genuine, and unlike anyone else's. That very rebirth is what your soul has been longing for, even if you never knew what to call it. You are not lacking in purpose. You have simply stopped playing a role. There is something strange that nearly everyone who undergoes a deep spiritual awakening will experience: the almost complete disappearance of all former life goals. You no longer wish for the things that once were dreams. You no longer feel eager for 5-year or 10-year plans, and you no longer want to write out lists of achievements. Not because you have lost enthusiasm for life, but because you have begun to understand that most of those goals did not truly originate from you. They came from comparison, from societal pressure, from expectations you unconsciously carried since childhood. And now, when you no longer live to please anyone, when you have released the need to be someone in others' eyes, you also release the need to have specific goals. That makes you feel as though you are lost. But if you look closely, you will see that you have not lost your direction. You have only stopped playing an old part. Carl Jung pointed out that most of what people call ambition does not actually arise from the self. It is the result of an ego continually driven by fear. The fear of not enough, the fear of being left behind, the fear of lacking worth. When you chase a goal because you fear you will be nothing if you do not achieve it, you operate from fear rather than from inner truth. And once you have seen that truth, you no longer have the courage to continue pretending. You no longer wish to expend your life energy on things that fail to nourish your deepest self. You no longer want to invest your time, your effort, even your spirit, into achievements that glitter brightly on the surface but leave emptiness in their wake. You no longer desire to trade your genuine life for a socially acceptable mask. At this point, you begin to feel a lack of motivation, but be careful. That is merely the trap of language that the ego uses to pull you back. The motivation you think you have lost is actually the misguided drive you once used to control yourself. Motivation born of fear, motivation born of lack, motivation born of craving recognition. All of those no longer work, and you assume you are plummeting downward. But in truth, you are simply ceasing to act from pretense. When you no longer play a role, you no longer need the old scripts. Without a script, old-style goals cannot survive. Imagine you are an actor who has performed the role of a successful person for decades. Every day, you step onto a stage wearing makeup applied with precision, reciting lines you have memorized, executing gestures directed in advance. You know that role so well that you forget who you once were. Then one day, you decide to remove the makeup, strip off the costume, step off the stage, and return to yourself. In that moment, you feel empty because no one is applauding, no one awaits your appearance, and there are no lines for you to deliver. But that emptiness is not a sign of losing your way. It is a sign of rebirth. It is the moment when you have the chance to hear the genuine voice within. That voice does not speak in rallying slogans. It speaks through the silence of feeling. You begin to do small things for no reason other than that they feel right. You tend a withered houseplant because you feel it deserves care. You start relearning an old skill simply because it moves your heart. You turn down a big opportunity because it no longer aligns with your own rhythm. You remain silent in a conversation because you know you do not need to prove anything. All of these small actions are proof that you have not lost your path. You are just living according to a new kind of direction, one that does not come from a plan or from short-term or long-term objectives, but from the deep resonance between yourself and reality. Carl Jung said that inner truth will guide you, but not in words. It comes through feeling. That feeling is not as intense as excitement. It is not as dramatic as conventional motivation. It is like an underground stream quietly flowing beneath the earth, yet strong enough to nourish an entire forest. When you live in sufficient quiet, you will recognize that current. When you are no longer pulled along by external rhythms, you will sense those very real impulses from within. If you are patient enough to listen, those impulses will carry you to where you need to go, rather than where others think you should be. This is why many people, after awakening, begin to live lives far simpler than before. They do not need as much money as they once thought. They do not need fame. They do not need admiration. They do not need grand goals to feel worthy. Instead, they find meaning in ordinary acts, sitting with a cup of tea without hurry, caring for a loved one without expecting acknowledgement, listening to a piece of music and letting it touch them without analysis. They live with fewer goals, yet more depth. They do not run anywhere, but every step they take is full and present. The important thing is not to confuse the stillness of the self with stagnation. The self does not operate to the rhythm of markets or social media. It does not need urgency. It does not need a three-step plan. It does not need you to stand out. It only needs you to live truthfully. And when you live truthfully, you will be guided to places you cannot foresee. A job appears unexpectedly and feels right. A new relationship forms without waiting. A creative idea bursts forth as you wash the dishes. Things come not from compulsion, but from readiness, and you become ready when you stop acting. Therefore, if you feel as though you have no life purpose, do not hastily conclude that you are off track. Perhaps you have only just stepped out of a role you have played for many years. Perhaps you are simply reacquainting yourself with who you are without a mask. Perhaps you are waiting for your true sense to speak, and you have the courage not to rush to replace it with a fabricated substitute. And if you continue following that sense, if you continue living by that gentle but authentic impulse, you will discover that life does not require you to have a specific goal. It only asks you to live honestly. And from that honesty, everything else will arrive at the right time, in the right way, with the right people, and in the right form, not because you forced it, but because you were ready to receive it without needing to perform. From that moment on, you no longer need motivation, you only need honesty with yourself. After you have passed through all the layers of spiritual awakening, from the collapse of the ego, the sense of emptiness and loss of direction, to the silent rebirth and the formation of a new way of living, you come to touch a truth that seems very simple yet requires a lifetime to live alongside. You no longer need motivation to live. You only need to live honestly with yourself. This is not an inspirational motto nor a motivational slogan, but an inner reality recognized only after you have shed every societal mold and every condition imposed upon you since childhood. For most of your life, you were taught that to have value, you must be motivated. You must have goals, ambitions, clear dreams, and pursue them relentlessly. From school to work, from family to social circles, everything focuses on one point. You must always have a direction. If you pause, if you have nothing in hand, if you simply exist without moving forward, you will be judged as aimless, lacking purpose, and lazy. But the truth you discover after awakening is very different. When you release every motivation built on fear, comparison, and the need for approval, you begin to see something else, something more pure, more silent, more profound, your original life that functions within you without needing any reason to exist. Jung once said that the presence of the self requires no engine. It only needs not to be obstructed. When you live from the self, you no longer search for something to propel you forward. You no longer need something grand to cling to. You no longer carry a list of life's purposes, because your own pure, complete presence is the answer. You no longer live to achieve, you live to be present. You no longer try to control life. Instead, you allow life to happen through you. In this state, you are no longer dragged by ambitions that once drained you, but are moved naturally by a subtle current from within. No reasons, no explanations needed. Observers may think you have normalized yourself, that you have lost your edge, that you lack the fervor you once had. But you do not see this as a loss. Rather, you feel relief. You are no longer imprisoned by your own expectations. You no longer have to prove anything. You no longer need recognition to feel worthy. And once those things fall away, You see more clearly than ever that the only motivation you need is honesty. When you are honest with your inner sense, you know what to do and what not to do, whether to stay or to leave, whether to begin or to let go, and you do not need anyone else to confirm if it is right or wrong. Because you no longer live within the framework of right and wrong. You live in harmony with yourself, and that is enough. This honesty is not about saying every thought out loud or sharing every emotion. It is a silent kind of honesty in which you no longer betray yourself in even your smallest choices. It is when you decline an invitation even knowing others may be disappointed, yet you do it because you know you do not truly want to go. It is when you say yes to a path no one else believes in, yet you know clearly it calls to you. It is when you choose solitude instead of a forced relationship, when you choose simplicity instead of complexity meant to impress. When you live in this way, you truly no longer need any external motivation to drive you. You only need to live honestly with your own self. And from there, everything, your work, relationships, ideas will come to you naturally, at the right time, in the right way, with the right people, for the right purpose, because you are ready to receive them without needing to play another role. When you choose silence instead of unnecessary explanations, those small actions, bit by bit, gather into a life built not on striving to achieve, but on genuine presence. At this stage, you no longer need self-improvement strategies. You no longer care about optimizing your life. You no longer fall into cycles of perpetual self-enhancement. Not because you do not wish to grow anymore, but because you have understood that true growth comes not from adding, but from subtracting, removing the artificial, removing the roles, removing even the need to always become better. True maturity is not about becoming an improved version, but about returning to your original, unconditional self, a self unadorned by ambition, not constructed by expectations, and not distorted by fear. From this point on, every motivation you once needed will gradually dissolve, not because you become insensitive, but because you no longer need them. And the miracle is that once you no longer need motivation, you begin to do everything with a deeper presence. You no longer have to force yourself to love someone. You do not need to plan to be creative. You do not need to push yourself to work hard. All these things happen naturally as a flow arising from your inner wholeness. You live, and because you live authentically, each of your actions becomes soulful, meaningful, alive, not because you want to leave a mark, but because you no longer hide your inner truth. Carl Jung calls this the state in which the ego ceases to oppose the self. No more separation, no more struggle, no more searching for a suitable role. The ego and the self now coexist, supporting rather than hindering one another. And when that happens, you will no longer worry about whether you are doing enough or going the right way. You no longer need evaluation metrics, clear goals, or specific results to know that your life is meaningful. Because meaning now does not lie in the destination. It lies in every moment you live in alignment with yourself. And if you have the courage to look back on your entire journey, you will realize that what you once thought was a loss of motivation was in fact the gateway to a way of life no longer dependent on the outside world. You have not lost your fire. You have only exchanged a flame that burned you daily with false aims for an enduring, gentle ember fueled by presence, by feeling, and by the trust that you need not become someone else in order to live fully. And when someone asks what drives you to live, you will not need a long explanation. You will simply smile and say, "Because I am alive, and living is a gift." No reasons, no goals, only authenticity, only presence. If you are still moving through those empty days, if you have not yet rekindled the blaze that once burned within you, if you still wonder why after all the awakenings and courage, the only thing you feel is silence, know that you are not lost. You have only stepped into a way of living that has never had a name, a life that requires no external motivation and only an honest presence from within. You are not broken. You are not wrong. You have only stopped pretending, and the silence you hear is the first voice of your true soul.